High Admiral Selara Vey stood before the crystalline windows of the Velari High Command, her silvery skin reflecting the harsh light of orbital bombardment above. The last defensive line of their civilization was crumbling. 3 centuries of peaceful expansion, scientific advancement, and cultural achievement were being systematically erased by the Nexus Dominion's relentless assault. "Status report," she commanded, her 4-fingered hand clenched tightly behind her back. "The outer colonies have gone dark." "Admiral," Lieutenant Kale responded, his voice trembling. "Nexus forces have adapted to our phase shield technology. Our most advanced defensive systems are failing." The Velari had always prided themselves on their technological sophistication. Their ships were works of art, their weapons designed to disable rather than destroy. But the Nexus Dominion had no interest in preservation. They were consuming everything in their path, strip mining entire worlds, and enslaving populations for their vast war machine. "Show me the archival records again," Selara ordered, turning to face the holographic display. Ancient star charts materialized before her, recovered from ruins that predated Velari civilization. They spoke of a species unlike any other in known space, beings from a high-gravity death world who had survived their own dark ages to reach for the stars. "Humans," she whispered, studying the coordinates. They were called humans. "Admiral," her science officer, Dr. Wren, interjected. "The atmospheric composition and gravity readings from their homeworld. No known spacefaring species could survive such conditions. If these beings exist, they would possess physical capabilities far beyond our own." The thunderous explosion rocked the command center. Through the windows, Selara watched another Velari cruiser split apart under Nexus fire, its elegant design reduced to burning debris. "We've lost contact with the southern defense grid," Kell reported. "The Nexus is deploying their planet-killer weapons. Estimated time until planetary shields fail: 6 hours." Selara closed her large, almond-shaped eyes. The Velari had exhausted every option, called upon every ally. None had dared stand against the Nexus Dominion. Their civilization was facing extinction, and their choices had run out. "Prepare the quantum beacon," she ordered. "Maximum power. We're going to send a message beyond the known frontiers." "Admiral," Dr. Wren protested, "the energy requirement could compromise our remaining planetary defenses, and we don't even know if. If we do nothing, there will be nothing left to defend." Selara cut him off. "The archives speak of a species that evolved on a world where every day was a battle for survival. A species that fought their way out of their gravity well through sheer determination. If there's even a chance they exist." The command center burst into action. The quantum beacon, originally designed for peaceful scientific exploration, was retrofitted into a desperate call for help. As their engineers worked, Selara composed the message that would carry the hopes of her entire civilization into the unknown. To the species known as humans, she began, "We are the Velari, and we face extinction. Our worlds burn. Our people die. We have seen the records of your strength, your resilience, your indomitable will to survive. If you exist, if you can hear us, we need your help." The message was encoded with their star charts, tactical data on the Nexus Dominion, and a compressed history of the Velari people. With a final command, Selara activated the quantum beacon. The massive device hummed to life, drawing power from their failing planetary grid. The message shot out faster than light itself, piercing the darkness between stars. "Now," Selara said quietly, "we wait, and we hold out as long as we can." Days passed. The Nexus Dominion's forces pressed their advantage, systematically destroying the Velari's orbital defenses. Selara watched her people's last hopes crumble, piece by piece. The quantum beacon's energy signature had drawn even more Nexus attention, accelerating their invasion timeline. On the 7th day, as the planetary shields flickered and failed, their long-range sensors detected something impossible. A massive gravitational distortion was forming at the edge of their system. The Nexus ships paused their assault, their sensors also tracking the anomaly. Unknown vessels emerging, Kale reported, his voice filled with awe. Their hull configurations. We have nothing like this in our database. Through the command center's windows, Solera watched as massive ships emerged from the distortion. They were angular, utilitarian, bearing the scars of previous battles. No elegant curves or artistic flourishes like Vaylari vessels. No organic shapes like Nexus ships. These were warships, built by a species that understood the harsh realities of combat. A transmission cut through their communications networks, broadcast simultaneously across all frequencies. The voice that spoke was unlike anything Solera had ever heard, carrying a weight of authority that sent chills through her core. This is Admiral Chen of the Terran Defense Fleet. We received your call for help. Hold fast, Vaylari. Humanity has arrived. Solera felt her heart skip a beat. The legends were true. The humans were real. And now, finally, the Nexus Dominion would learn what it meant to face an enemy born from a death world. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the TDF Hyperion, studying the tactical display with eyes hardened by decades of service. The Vaylari defense grid was in shambles, their elegant ships no match for the brutal efficiency of their attackers. But something about this situation didn't add up. Analysis of the Nexus fleet, she commanded. Captain Rodriguez stepped forward, his dark features illuminated by the holographic display. Their technology is impressive, Admiral. Energy weapons we've never seen before, some kind of organic synthetic hybrid hulls. But their tactics, he shook his head. They're relying purely on overwhelming force. No finesse, no adaptation. They've never faced an enemy that could truly fight back. They're bullies, Chen said quietly. And we know what happens to bullies when someone finally stands up to them. She turned to her communications officer. Open a channel to High Admiral Solera. The alien face that appeared on the screen was both familiar and strange. The Vaylari were humanoid, but their silvery skin and large, expressive eyes marked them as something entirely different. Chen could see both hope and uncertainty in those eyes. High Admiral, Chen began, your message reached us 3 days ago. We've brought 30 ships of the line, including our newest carriers. The Nexus Dominion is about to learn they're not the only ones who know how to fight. Solera's expression shifted in what Chen assumed was surprise. Admiral Chen, we are grateful, but I must warn you. The Nexus adapts quickly. Their ships can regenerate, their weapons can be countered. Chen interrupted firmly. We've analyzed their attack patterns. They're predictable. They've grown soft, relying on superior numbers and technology rather than skill and innovation. She allowed herself a small smile. Humanity had to fight for every step we took into space. Our ships aren't pretty, but they're built to take a punch and hit back harder. As if to emphasize her point, the Nexus fleet began moving, their organic-looking ships flowing into attack formations, their energy weapons charged, preparing to deal with this new threat as they had dealt with all others. All ships, combat positions, Chen ordered. Carriers, launch strike wings. Show them what happens when they pick on someone their own size. The human fleet moved with practiced precision. Unlike the Vaylari's beautiful but vulnerable vessels, Earth's ships were heavily armored, bristling with point defense systems and multiple redundancies. They had been designed with one principle in mind: survival. The first Nexus salvos splashed against reinforced shields, and Chen watched their reactions carefully. The enemy expected their targets to crumble, to retreat. Instead, the human fleet pressed forward. Launch kinetic strikes, Chen commanded. Let's see how their regenerative hulls handle good old-fashioned tungsten rods at relativistic speeds. The space between the fleets lit up as human weapons fire met Nexus defenses. The enemy's organic hulls began regenerating almost instantly. But physics was physics. No amount of biological repair could counter the sheer destructive force of mass driver impacts. High Admiral Solera, Chen transmitted, will keep their main fleet occupied. Can your remaining ships protect your civilian populations? Yes, Celera responded, her voice stronger now. But Admiral, the Nexus has never been fought to a standstill before. They will not take this challenge lightly. Good, Chen replied. Because neither will we. This is what humanity does best. We protect those who need protection, and we put bullies in their place. The battle intensified as Nexus commanders realized their usual tactics weren't working. Their ships began adapting, shifting formations, trying to counter the human assault. But for every adaptation, the human fleet had a response. Centuries of war and conflict had taught humanity the value of tactical flexibility. In the Hyperion's tactical center, Chen watched as the first wave of fighter strikes hit their marks. Human pilots, operating craft designed to function in the crushing gravity of their homeworld, demonstrated maneuverability that seemed to defy physics. The Nexus's organic ships, for all their regenerative capability, couldn't track targets moving with such speed and precision. Admiral, Rodriguez reported, the enemy is pulling back. They're regrouping at the system's edge. Chen nodded. As expected, they've never had to actually fight before. This is probably the first time they've had to consider the possibility of defeat. She turned to her communications officer. Signal High Admiral Celera. We need to coordinate our next moves carefully. The Vaylari leader appeared again, her expression now showing what Chen recognized as amazement. Your ships, your warriors. We had read the ancient records, but to see it with our own eyes. This is just the beginning, Chen assured her. But we need to work together. Your technology, combined with our combat experience, could be the key to pushing the Nexus back permanently. Are you willing to trust us? Celera's response was immediate. You came when no one else would. You fought when others fled. The trust is already earned, Admiral Chen. As the human fleet maintained its defensive positions, Chen began planning the next phase. The Nexus Dominion had started this war thinking they were invincible. Now they would learn what it meant to face an enemy who had evolved on a world that tried to kill them every day, who had fought their way to the stars through sheer determination. Send word to Earth, Chen ordered. Tell them we're going to need reinforcements. This isn't just about defending the Vaylari anymore. It's about sending a message to the entire galaxy. Humanity stands with those who need us, and we don't back down from a fight. The next 48 hours transformed the Vaylari system into a crucible of war. The Nexus Dominion, stunned by their first real defeat, had called in reinforcements. Their organic hybrid ships emerged from hyperspace in waves, each larger than the last. But humanity had been preparing for this moment. In the Joint Command Center established aboard the Hyperion, Admiral Chen and High Admiral Celera worked to merge their forces' strengths. Vaylari sensor technology, far more advanced than anything humanity had developed, was being integrated into human targeting systems. The result was devastating. Multiple hostile signatures detected, a human tactical officer reported. They're trying a new approach, smaller, faster ships. Looks like they're learning. Chen studied the tactical display, where red dots representing Nexus vessels swarmed like angry insects. They're adapting, but so are we. Deploy the new hybrid squadrons. For the first time in the war, human pilots flew Vaylari-modified fighters. The elegant alien craft had been retrofitted with human-designed armor and weapon systems, creating something entirely new. As they launched from their carriers, they moved with impossible grace, their enhanced sensors allowing them to track and predict enemy movements with unprecedented accuracy. Remarkable, Celera breathed, watching the hybrid squadrons tear through the Nexus formation. Your pilots, they fly as if the laws of physics are merely suggestions. That's because on Earth, we had to learn to fight gravity itself just to reach space, Chen explained. Every human pilot in this fleet grew up in crushing gravity that would kill most species. These modified ships, to them, it's like being unleashed. The battle unfolded across the system. Nexus commanders, used to enemies who would retreat or surrender, found themselves facing an opponent who grew stronger with each engagement. Human ships took damage but refused to fall, their redundant systems and armored hulls absorbing punishment that would have destroyed any other vessel. But it wasn't just about brute force. The combined human Vaylari fleet demonstrated something the galaxy had never seen before: tactical innovation. Vaylari phase shield technology, previously defeated by the Nexus, found new purpose when paired with human battle strategies. Target the third quadrant, Chen ordered. Execute Operation Thunderbolt. A group of human destroyers activated their Vaylari-modified shields, deliberately drawing Nexus fire. The enemy ships, sensing weakness, concentrated their attack. But this was exactly what Chen had planned for. Phase shift. Now. The destroyer's shields shifted frequency in perfect synchronization, creating a cascading energy wave that rippled through space. The Nexus organic ships, their systems attuned to the previous shield frequency, were caught in the backwash. Their hybrid hulls began to destabilize, organic components turning against synthetic ones. By the ancestors, Solara whispered, "We never imagined our technology could be used this way." "Sometimes it takes an outside perspective," Chen replied. "Your people built amazing defensive systems. We just figured out how to turn them into weapons." The battle continued to evolve. The Nexus, facing tactics they couldn't predict, began to show signs of desperation. Their usually coordinated attacks became erratic. Ships broke formation, individual commanders trying different approaches, all failing against the combined might of human determination and Vaylari technology. But victory wouldn't come easily. A massive Nexus dreadnought, twice the size of anything they'd yet encountered, emerged from hyperspace. Its hull writhed with organic enhancement, and its weapon systems glowed with accumulated energy. They'd brought in their command ship, Solara observed. The Nexus never risks their leadership unless they're about to do something desperate, Chen finished. She opened a channel to all ships. "This is it, people. They're scared, and scared enemies make mistakes. But they're also at their most dangerous. Stand ready." The Nexus dreadnought's first attack demonstrated why the species had dominated this sector of space for so long. Energy beams of impossible power lashed out, overwhelming even the enhanced shields of 3 human cruisers. The massive ships, built to withstand almost anything, began to break apart. Casualties reported on decks 3 through 7, Rodriguez reported grimly. The Nexus found a way to bypass our armor. They're targeting structural weak points with surgical precision. Chen's expression hardened. "They want to play rough. Fine. Signal the Artemis and the Hercules. Tell Captain Santos to begin Protocol Omega." Solara turned to her human ally. "What is Protocol Omega?" "Something we hoped we wouldn't need," Chen answered. "Your people aren't the only ones who can adapt technology in unexpected ways. We've been studying the Nexus organic components since our first engagement, and we figured out their weakness." 2 human carriers moved into position, their modified launch bays opening to reveal something that made even the stoic Vaylari admiral step back. Hundreds of tiny objects, each no bigger than a fighter, emerged into space. They looked almost primitive compared to the advanced technology surrounding them. "Biomechanical parasites," Chen explained. "Based on your research into synthetic biology, combined with our understanding of tactical warfare, the Nexus thinks their organic technology makes them superior. Let's see how they handle having it turned against them." The swarm of parasites accelerated toward the Nexus dreadnought, their simple but effective programming driving them toward the largest concentration of organic material. The massive ship's defenses, designed to stop energy weapons and kinetic strikes, proved useless against these microscopic invaders. "They're through the outer hull," Rodriguez reported. "Infection spreading. Organic components are beginning to fail." The dreadnought's surface began to ripple as its hybrid systems turned on each other. What had been its greatest strength, the perfect fusion of organic and mechanical, became its undoing. The mighty vessel, pride of the Nexus fleet, began to tear itself apart from the inside. "Send the signal," Chen commanded. "Let every Nexus ship in range see what happens when they underestimate humanity, and let them know this is just the beginning." As the dreadnought's destruction lit up the system, Solara turned to Chen. "You've given us more than just military aid. Admiral, you've given us hope. But the Nexus won't forget this defeat. They'll return, stronger than ever." Chen's smile was grim but determined. "That's exactly what we're counting on. Because next time, we'll be ready. And they'll learn that humanity doesn't just fight wars. We win them." 3 weeks into the conflict, the Nexus Dominion revealed why they had ruled unchallenged for so long. Their response to defeat was overwhelming, methodical, and ruthless. Thousands of ships poured into the sector. Their organic technology evolved to counter every strategy the human Valeri Alliance had employed. Admiral Chen stood in the ruins of a Valeri research facility, watching holographic projections of enemy movements. The facility's underground bunkers had become their new command center after the Nexus targeted every major military installation on the surface. "They're learning faster than we anticipated," Solara observed, her silver skin dulled by exhaustion. "Our phase shield modifications are no longer effective, and the biomechanical parasites." She gestured to another display showing failed attack attempts. "They've developed an immune response," Chen finished, "just like any living organism would." She turned to Captain Rodriguez, who was coordinating with Earth's Defense Command. "What's the status of Project Prometheus?" 2 days out, Admiral. "Assuming the Nexus doesn't find our supply lines." Chen nodded, knowing they might not have 2 days. The enemy had adapted to every conventional tactic, every piece of modified technology. But they still hadn't seen humanity's true potential, the ability to think beyond conventional warfare entirely. "High Admiral," Chen addressed Solara, "I need access to your quantum physics archives. All of it, especially the theoretical work your people considered too dangerous to pursue." Solara's large eyes widened. "You mean the dimensional resonance studies? We abandoned that research centuries ago. The power requirements alone would drain entire systems, and the risks are better than extinction," Chen finished. "Your people had the right idea, but you stopped at the theoretical stage because you're not predisposed to weaponizing science. We are." The next hours were a blur of activity. Human engineers worked alongside Valeri scientists, combining theories that had never been meant to meet. The Valeri's understanding of quantum mechanics merged with humanity's brutal pragmatism, creating something that defied conventional physics. "It's ready," Rodriguez reported, standing before a device that looked deceptively simple. "But Admiral, we only have enough power for one shot. If this fails—" "It won't," Chen stated with quiet certainty. "Because we're not going to use it the way the Valeri designed it. We're going to do something they never considered." The plan was audacious, bordering on insane. The Valeri's quantum resonance technology had been designed to study parallel dimensions, but Chen saw something else in those calculations, a way to turn the Nexus's greatest strength against them. "Their ships are partially organic," she explained to the gathered commanders. "They adapt, they evolve, they heal. But what happens to a living organism when you suddenly expose it to the quantum possibilities of every decision it never made?" Understanding dawned in Solara's eyes. "You want to use the resonance field to force their organic components to experience multiple evolutionary paths simultaneously. The strain on their neural networks will be catastrophic," Chen confirmed. "But we have to get close, really close, and we'll only have one chance." The next 48 hours pushed both species to their limits, while the main fleet engaged the Nexus in hit-and-run attacks. Drawing their attention, a smaller group of ships underwent radical modifications. The Hyperion, Chen's flagship, was chosen to carry the quantum device. "All ships in position," Rodriguez reported. "Nexus fleet is responding to our decoy attacks exactly as predicted." Chen took a deep breath, looking at the tactical display one last time. Everything hinged on precise timing and the enemy's predictable arrogance. The Nexus had grown accustomed to hunting down and destroying any force that challenged them. They wouldn't expect their prey to turn and strike at their heart. "Begin Operation Quantum Strike," she ordered. "All ships, execute on my mark." The modified Hyperion accelerated toward the heart of the Nexus fleet. Its engines pushed far beyond safe limits. Around it, human and Valeri ships engaged in a complex dance of feints and counterattacks, creating a corridor through the enemy formation. "They're taking the bait," Solara observed from her position beside Chen. "Their flagship is moving to intercept personally, just as you predicted." "Wounded pride," Chen replied grimly. "Gets them every time." She opened a channel to all ships. "This is it, people. Everything we've done has led to this moment. Show them what happens when they push humanity into a corner." The Hyperion plunged deeper into the enemy formation, its modified shields barely holding against the onslaught. The massive Nexus flagship, arrogant in its power, moved to crush this impudent challenger. "Quantum device at full power," Rodriguez reported. "Field stability at maximum. We're going to get one shot at this." "That's all we need," Chen responded. She turned to Solara. "Your people gave us the science. We're about to give you the victory." The Hyperion's charge seemed suicidal, heading straight for the Nexus flagship's organic core. At the last possible moment, Chen gave the order that would change the course of the war. "Activate the quantum resonance field. Full spectrum, maximum dispersion." The device activated, creating a sphere of pure possibility around the Hyperion. As it expanded to encompass the Nexus flagship, the effect was immediate and devastating. The organic components of the massive ship began to shift and writhe, experiencing every possible evolution they could have undergone, all at once. The quantum cascade spread from ship to ship through the Nexus's linked neural networks. Their greatest strength, their connected, adaptive nature, became the avenue of their destruction. Vessels began to break apart as their organic components went mad, unable to process the infinite possibilities being forced upon them. "By all the ancestors," Solara whispered, watching the destruction unfold. "You didn't just defeat them. You showed them the price of their own evolution." "Sometimes," Chen replied, watching the Nexus fleet tear itself apart, "the best weapon isn't the biggest or the most advanced. It's the one your enemy never sees coming because they're too convinced of their own superiority to look for it." The aftermath of the quantum strike reshaped the political landscape of known space. The Nexus Dominion, once thought invincible, retreated to their core systems, their organic technology fundamentally altered by the exposure to quantum possibilities. But victory, as humanity had learned countless times before, came with its own challenges. Admiral Chen stood in the newly rebuilt Valeri High Command, watching ships from a dozen different species move through the system's space lanes. The quantum strike hadn't just defeated the Nexus, it had sent a message to every civilization in the galaxy. Humanity had arrived, and they were a force unlike any other. "The trade delegations are ready for you," Captain Rodriguez announced, approaching with a datapad. "Everyone wants to meet the species that broke the Nexus. Everyone wants to make sure we're not the next threat," Chen corrected, studying the list of representatives. Species that had hidden from the Nexus for centuries were now emerging, drawn by the power shift, but wary of its architects. High Admiral Solara joined them, her silver skin now bearing the ceremonial markings of her people's highest honor. "They fear what they don't understand, and humanity is very difficult to understand. You appear physically weaker than many species, yet you persist. Your technology seems primitive, yet you find ways to overcome advanced defenses. You are a contradiction." "We're survivors," Chen replied simply. "Everything that makes us different, every trait that seems contradictory, comes from that basic truth. We survived a world that tried to kill us, and instead of being broken by it, we learned from it." The diplomatic summit that followed would establish new alliances and trade routes, But more importantly, it would begin to answer the question that every species was asking. What role would humanity play in this new galaxy? We've received the analysis of the quantum strike's long-term effects, Rodriguez reported during a private meeting. The Nexus fleet's organic components didn't just experience alternative evolutions, they're continuing to change. Their entire technological base has been compromised. And now everyone knows it, Chen mused. Which means every species that suffered under their rule will be looking for revenge. The power vacuum could trigger a dozen new conflicts. Celara nodded gravely. Already, we see signs of opportunistic expansion from other powers. The Nexus kept many aggressive species in check through fear. Without that fear, the galaxy needs something new, Chen finished. Not another empire, not another dominion, but something different. She turned to face her allies. The Valeri have the technology, the diplomatic connections, and the cultural sophistication to guide peaceful development. Humanity has the strength and the will to defend it. You're proposing an alliance, Celara realized, not just between our peoples, but open to any species willing to commit to mutual defense and development. The Nexus ruled through fear and overwhelming force, Chen explained. We've proven that doesn't work, but we've also proven that strength and wisdom can coexist. Your people's scientific knowledge, combined with our tactical experience, created something neither of us could have achieved alone. The proposal spread through diplomatic channels, catching fire among species tired of living under the shadow of empire. The Valeri's reputation for peaceful advancement, backed by humanity's demonstrated ability to defeat supposedly unbeatable foes, created a compelling alternative to the old order. But not everyone welcomed this new arrangement. In the darkness between stars, remnants of the Nexus began to evolve in new and unpredictable ways. Other powers, seeing humanity's potential threat, started forming their own alliances. The galaxy was changing, and change never came without resistance. We're tracking unusual energy signatures from the outer rim, Rodriguez reported months later. Something's out there, studying our defenses, testing our responses. Let them watch, Chen replied, standing with Celara as they observed the construction of a joint human-Valeri defense station. They'll learn what others have learned. Humanity doesn't seek conflict, but we don't run from it either. And now we have allies who understand that strength isn't just about destructive power. Celara touched a control panel, bringing up a holographic display of known space. Hundreds of points of light represented worlds that had joined their growing alliance. When we sent that desperate call into the darkness, we hoped to find saviors. Instead, we found partners. Perhaps that is the greatest victory of all. The quantum strike had ended one era of galactic history, but it had begun another. Humanity's emergence onto the galactic stage hadn't just changed the balance of power. It had changed how power itself was understood. Strength could protect as well as destroy. Technology could unite as well as divide. As Chen watched a group of human engineers working alongside Valeri scientists, she reflected on the path that had brought them here. The Valeri's call for help had given humanity its first real test in the broader galaxy. Their response had proven not just their military capability, but their potential to be something more than just another conquering force. There will be more challenges, she said quietly. More threats, more conflicts, more choices between peace and war. And we will face them together, Celara replied. Not as savior and saved, but as equals who understand that the greatest strength comes not from dominating others, but from standing together against those who would dominate. The stars stretched out before them, infinite in their possibility. Humanity had taken its first steps into a larger universe, not as conquerors or victims, but as protectors. The price of victory had been high, but the reward was the chance to build something new. A future where strength served wisdom, and where no species would have to stand alone against the darkness. The war was over, but humanity's true test was just beginning, and they would face it as they had faced every challenge, with determination, innovation, and the unshakable will to forge a better future no matter the odds.